Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, some big names are out and some new ones are in. A major cabinet shuffle today in Ottawa. Well, what are the politics behind the choices? And what does it all mean for BC? The host of CBC Radio's The House, Catherine Cullen, will join us in a few moments. And over to the FIFA Women's World Cup. Canada showed its strength today, winning over Ireland. Let us know if you are cheering on Canada's women's team. That's coming up too. After 12:30, we dip into wedding do's and don'ts. How do you say I do to good wedding etiquette? I'm Michelle Eliot. This is BC Today. And thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1. We're also live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on CBC Vancouver's YouTube page. Welcome to you. Thanks so much for being with us. And yes, a major cabinet shuffle today. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has sworn in a new cabinet. Some familiar faces are out, 7 ministers removed. Others moved to new portfolios, and many cabinet portfolios have changed hands. Now, to get more into the politics behind today's choices and what it could mean for BC, I'm joined by Catherine Cullen. She's host of CBC Radio's The House and a senior reporter on Parliament Hill. Hello, Catherine.
Hey, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you with us. You could say this is the World Cup of parliamentary reporting, just as sporty, right? What stands out for you in these changes?
I think, frankly, just how big the change is when you just look at the number of people affected, right? There are 38 people in cabinet, 39 if you count the prime minister. Mm-hmm. Other than the prime minister, only 8 ministers didn't change portfolios today. I mean, that is pretty wild. I can't recall a cabinet shuffle like that. And so on the one hand, it's almost like a whole new government. Yeah. But at the same time, you do have some of the same core people sticking around. You know, Chrystia Freeland, Melanie Joly, François-Philippe Champagne staying in some of those key roles. And of course, the person everyone associates most with this government, the prime minister, staying put. But there are a lot of changes happening not very far underneath the surface here. I think the scope itself is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, because it does mean that so many parts of government, you're going to have ministers getting up to speed, for the next few weeks. Yeah. A lot of work that goes into getting people to understand their portfolios. It affects all the staff. It affects all the people who have to brief them. The machinery of government is frankly going to slow down a little bit over the next few weeks as they try to deal with this. Politically, it's interesting because you can't help read it but as an admission that something is not working for the government. When you need to make what is almost a wholesale change like this, it does suggest that they have a lot of issues that they feel that they need to deal with, at best revitalize. I'd say that's the positive spin, but given that in fact, they fired a couple people from pretty prominent roles, it would suggest that they, in fact, have some problems that they're hoping that this cabinet shuffle addresses.
Well, some of those do stand out. David Lametti from Justice, Marco Mendocino from Public Safety, out of their roles. And, these are names we hear, we have heard and observed over the last few years. And so what do you think is the message then that the Prime Minister is trying to send with just that scope of change?
Yeah, I think the firings in particular, I suppose you can read that as like, we are not messing around. Marco Mendocino had some real problems. I think Canadians who follow politics would be able to easily tell you that, right? It's a difficult portfolio of public safety, but he made some very clear missteps, be it on trying to change gun legislation and how he approached that issue. More recently, the way his office handled the prison transfer of serial killer Paul Bernardo. So, that does seem to be, I guess, in essence, a punishment for missteps. David Lametti, I don't think we entirely understand what has gone on there. It's quite a shock to fire your justice minister when, it's not that there haven't been difficulties. Certainly, there are questions about the pace of judicial appointments, although the Prime Minister's office is also engaged in that issue. Bail reform, there are a lot of tough issues out there, but I think quite a few jaws sort of dropped. Is how much of this is just about electoral calculus too, right? A lot of the people who got named to cabinet today are in swing ridings, places where the government really wants to hold on to their seat but might be at risk of losing it to, be it the NDP, the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois. So putting these people in more prominent roles, maybe it helps them retain the seat the next time around. Whereas David Lametti, Anglophone Montrealer, pretty safe seat, maybe you weren't getting the same kind of bang for your buck, although, Is that like cold, hard politics or what, if that's what it came down to, you know?
That must hurt. That must hurt.
Yeah.
We did hear from the official leader of the opposition, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, this morning as well, reacting to the cabinet shuffle. How much influence are the Conservatives having on these changes? You talked about, things are not going well.
Yeah, I mean, not all of it is Pierre Poilievre, certainly. I think the foreign interference file, in some ways, the government has just been unable to get out from underneath the issue. But I think you have to say that a lot of this is about Pierre Poilievre and or, in the same breath, the government's challenges in really making Canadians feel that they are engaged on the issues that Canadians are struggling with right now. Pierre Poilievre has been hammering at that issue of housing for quite some time now, right? Even in the Conservative leadership race, long before he was actually Conservative leader. And it doesn't feel like, I know it's been a particularly acute issue in British Columbia and Vancouver for some time, but I was thinking this morning, it's not so long ago that we were talking about the housing problem, at least in other parts of the country, as like, oh, will my kids ever be able to afford a home, which is certainly a problem now. But the across the country, I think the things are so acute at this point. It's, am I about to get rent evicted? Am I going to have to sell my home because I can't afford my mortgage? Like, it's gone from being a step removed in your aspirations for other parts of your family to like, how am I going to get to tomorrow, next week, next month? Poilievre has been very precise in trying to lay that at the feet of the federal government. Obviously, it's a multifaceted issue that affects all levels of government. But I don't know that the Liberals have done enough to, in part because they've been stymied by these conversations about foreign interference. I don't know if they have either done enough or, depending on who you ask, communicated effectively enough to show that they see where people are at and they are doing what is needed to be done to help them through, sometimes a really high anxiety.
Well, it's an issue that's plagued BC for sure for a long time. And so let's get to what this means for British Columbia and some of the people here. A BC MP has been promoted into cabinet. Terry Beach, the MP for Burnaby North Seymour, now Minister of Citizen Services, as well. Joyce Murray, who's a longtime MP for Vancouver Quadra, she announced in recent days that she wouldn't be running again, and she was Fisheries Minister. What does this all mean for British Columbia?
Interesting, I think it does, again, speak to the sort of like the sort of bloodless political calculus that goes into all of this. And obviously cabinet shuffles, these are human beings and their families that are involved, and there is a lot of emotion, but there is sort of a steely-eyed part of it as well. If you're going to drop somebody from BC, you're going to replace them with somebody else from BC. Joyce Murray has said that she made the decision not to run again. I will tell you that reporters up on Parliament Hill had asked her maybe a month ago if she was running again, and she was. So it's very interesting that now she is not, right around the time that we find out she will no longer be in cabinet. There's also no rule that says that you can't stay in cabinet if you're not running again. There's a bit of a chicken and egg here. I think I can't speak to Joyce Murray's personal circumstances, but I think more broadly, as we see a few of these, it can be a way to sort of gracefully, to try to have a bit of a graceful exit from the picture. Terry Beach, very well liked. We talked about swing ridings before. Sven Robinson challenged him for his seat at one point. Terry Beach held on to it. It's a seat that the Liberals want to continue to hold. He is somebody who I am told is a strong political operative, strong political actor. He's going to be out knocking doors, raising money, trying to get people engaged with the Liberal Party. I also think his assignment is really interesting. Citizen Services, there is no federal portfolio until now. So he's in some sense creating this. If I understand correctly, there is such a portfolio in British Columbia, but it also speaks to the Liberals trying to deal with a problem. Another thing that Pierre Poilievre was beating them over the head with were these long lineups for passports, right? Like, Canada is broken. You can't get the basic services that you need. Well, now they see this guy, Terry Beach, as a bit of a fixer. Minister Beach, he's going to be the one who's responsible for making sure that things are running smoothly. It was funny. He was just scrumming with reporters not too long ago, and they were like, "Well, which services? Can you give us a few examples?" And he said, "Well, my deputy minister handed me a sheet full of bullet points about 5 minutes ago, but I think you're going to have to give me a little bit more time to figure out what my job is." Fair enough. We'll come back to him on that one.
New ministers having to catch up. Yes, in BC, we do have a Ministry of Citizen Services. Lisa Baer is in that portfolio. Catherine, I know you've been talking for a long time today already, and you will continue to do so. We look forward to what you do with us this weekend on the House. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
That's Catherine Cullen, host of CBC Radio's The House and a senior reporter on Parliament Hill. It is quarter past the hour here on BC Today on CBC Radio 1 and live streaming on cbc.ca/BC, on CBC Gem, and on YouTube as well. You can find us on the CBC Vancouver page. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Michelle Eliot. We're going to switch to the actual World Cup now, the FIFA Women's World Cup, a joyous morning for fans of Team Canada. They were on the edge of their seats in the early hours of the day after Ireland scored early, but Team Canada tied the game and then scored the winning goal, ending with 2-1. Now, player Adriana Leon played the hero, scoring the winning second half goal and leading the team to victory. Now, the next match, if you want to mark your calendar, it's set for Monday, and they're going to play host country's Team Australia. We want to hear from you in this half hour. Are you watching the FIFA Women's World Cup this year? What does soccer mean to you? Whether you are someone who has played growing up or play right now, if you have children who play soccer, we would love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 on your cell phone, star or pound 690. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And joining me now to take your calls, we're going to take your questions with Carrie Serwetnik, a former member of Canada's women's soccer team, founder of Equal Play FC and Free Kick FC, the first woman included in the Canada Soccer Hall of Fame. Carrie, great to speak with you again. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, tell us what it was like for you to watch the game this morning.
Well, I mean, I'm not a morning person. I thought I was going to roll out of bed at 4:59, and turn on the TV. And we decided to have like an event over at Bimini's Pub. And it was just really interesting because we've had a full house for the first game. And then the second game, it was a bit last minute, but the city said we couldn't show the game, right? And I was thinking, well, for the Qatar World Cup, every bar in town was open for the World Cup. And so the owners decided, it's women owned now, they decided to play it anyways. And we had, groups of friends come and cheer on Canada. It was way better to get together with people. And, and Canada played with much more urgency today. They obviously had to win this game.
Yeah.
And so it was exciting. Even getting the goal against us in the first 3 minutes, it was like, oh God.
Yeah, what does that do to a team?
More interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so what was it like to watch that second, especially that second goal then?
Oh, 100%. It was just so exciting. But you could feel a momentum happening. Like, it was much better than the Nigeria game. It seemed like we barely had any shots first time round. And so this time there was a lot more crosses and through balls, and it was wet, so it also had that sort of unknown factor of,
right,
what might just kind of slip off somebody. So it was a much better game.
Yeah. What are the conditions over in Australia right now?
Well, I think it's like Vancouver in January or February, right? And so not as fun. You can see all the players in jackets and people in the stands with rain gear on. So it's not necessarily the place you want to go right now, but great to watch on TV.
Maybe, Carrie, can you take us through a bit of a play-by-play of that, the first goal by Ireland and what happened, and how that momentum was gained by Canada?
Well, it was just 3 minutes into the game, and it was a corner kick, and it was just a perfect, I'm sure it was planned. It was like top corner on their part. And so it was just like, oh my God, we're losing 1-0 after 3 minutes. We got a little luck of the Irish for our goal because a ball kind of skimmed across their 18-yard line, and it went off one of the Irish players. So it was a bit of an own goal. I mean, we were in the neighborhood, so it was possible we would have got our foot on it also. And then, it was a beautiful through ball in the second half to Lyon, and she finished it. So, it's fun to see a game with goals, right? And it's fun to see Canada score. On a personal level, even though I'm always cheering for Canada because I have a charity, we have one of our partners who are going to give Equal Play $1,000 every time Canada
Oh,
scores. So that
wow.
was yeah, so that was fun, right? To see us score. Christine Sinclair didn't start for the first time since 1999,
Yeah.
and then she came in the second half, and she definitely had a presence. She had some chances, and probably like of course brought leadership onto the field.
Well,
So it
yes.
was a good game. It was fun to watch. Even I mean, the Irish had some opportunities as well.
Yeah. And, I think people watch for Christine Sinclair as well. And you're right about the leadership that she exhibits. I mean, so much has been said about that for sure. Carrie Serwetnik is with me, founder of Equal Play and Free Kick FC. We are taking your calls on the FIFA Women's World Cup and Team Canada. Canada's women doing so well, of course, bringing soccer to the fore here in this country. And so we're asking you what soccer means to you. Are you watching the World Cup right now? And are you cheering on Team Canada? Of course you are. Let us know about it. And if you have played soccer yourself, if you have kids who play the sport, tell us what it's like to watch people on the world stage, to watch our players on the world stage like this. And what does it mean to the women's team specifically? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. By email, you can reach us, bctoday@cbc.ca. And Carrie, you talked earlier about the second game not being showed, and we don't have comment from the city on that. But what are your thoughts around the kind of the fight for equality that this team has been taking on?
Yeah, honestly, it's been going on for decades. It's been going on since the beginning, and it's really hard to stomach when you see how successful the women's national team has been over the decades with their Olympic and World Cup performances. And I'll never knock the men's team. It was great to see them in Qatar, but it took 36 years for them to get to the World Cup, and always the funding went to them. It was always the excuse, well, if they make it to the World Cup, it brings in all this money from FIFA. And so it was just they're always finding reasons to not care for the women's team. And so obviously it came down to them going on strike this year, for them meeting with the Heritage Committee, for them to, expressing to the rest of the country their treatment. And I think people are just really surprised, even though they may have heard murmurs throughout the years, just like firsthand their experience. And I don't know if they've been paid yet, but it's still ongoing issues, and that must really affect their performance on some level. They didn't have any games at home, which would have been fun to go see for us. And so it's, I think about, I saw the ESPYs recently. It's in the United States for athletic performance, and they gave the Arthur Ashe Award to the U.S. Women's soccer team. And they've led the way into, getting equal pay. And this is giving, I think, other countries the confidence to approach their own federations and demand better treatment for themselves and other sports. So I hopefully we're just in an upward spiral around the world.
Pam writes us, I want the women to do well as they have been struggling with equality and funding issues. Pam, thank you very much. bctoday@cbc.ca is where you can reach us, of course. Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. On your cell phone, star or pound 690. Alda is on the line from Vancouver. Hi, Alda.
Hi there.
Hi. Are you watching the Women's World Cup?
I have been watching it. Yes.
Aha. You were up early this morning, were you?
Actually, I haven't watched today's game yet. I'm planning to, but I haven't had a chance. But I've been watching some of the other games.
I was wondering that. I'm sure you're going to watch it, but of course the spoilers are all around us. Well, tell me about it. Why is it important to you?
Well, I have three girls. They've all played soccer growing up, and my husband's really encouraged them in that. And I just recently started playing myself in my 40s, which has been amazing to discover something at this stage and really enjoy it. And it's been a really welcoming and fun thing to do. And just watching, it's given me a new insight when I'm watching the game, because I, can understand it a little more, or imagine, or even inspire, it inspires me a little bit more too.
Yes. I love that, Alda, that you have taken up soccer in your 40s. That gives me inspiration.
I know there are lots of opportunities, it seems, for, I think, women especially to start it who have maybe never played as kids. So, yeah, that's been great.
What prompted you to do that?
It was probably a need for something to get me active and to get me moving, and something a little more inspiring to do. So, yeah, that was my main. Lots of people do it to meet people as well and things like that. And that was an unexpected benefit for me, but really fun.
What's been the best part of it?
Yeah, I think probably just actually playing a team sport and the feeling you get, when you're working together with other people, and there's such encouragement and such, the fact that there are some people that are new and some people that are really experienced playing together. There is I find such encouragement and support for each other. It's just a really great feeling. Yeah. So,
I bet your daughters are proud of you.
Yeah, I hope so.
If they're paying attention.
If they're paying attention. Right. I also find that it just adds that just watching the women's World Cup, watching all these women's teams play. They're so entertaining. They are so good. It's amazing. And they're very comparable to watching men's soccer. I mean, in many ways, I prefer it. And it's been so fantastic to see how well all these teams are doing, how super skilled and amazing they all are. It's just really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Inspiring. And as are you, Alda. I love your story. Thank you so much for calling.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, all the best to you. That's Alda in Vancouver. Well, Carrie, I'll go back to you on that, because you inspire girls to play the sport. What do you take from Alda's story, and any tips for people who, maybe in their 30s, 40s, or want to take up soccer at an older age?
Well, what was going through my mind is, we have new teams like the Philippines and Haiti's in the World Cup for the first time, Zambia. And so it really affects those countries, like their society, because now for the first time, it's on television, it's showing like high-level women playing, and the effect it has on little girls looking out and seeing like these role models gives permission for girls to get a ball and maybe play or go join a team. Because like kind of forever, girls were kind of bashed for wanting to play soccer. They were called names. They weren't giving the opportunities, right? And so we're kind of blessed now here in Canada. Like we've had decades of our national team doing really well. So a 40-year-old woman is looking like, oh, I guess I'll go and play, right? Well, in some other countries, now that more opportunities are happening, it's spreading, and this is the power of the World Cup, right? That more girls are feeling empowered, right? It's about fitness. It's about positive socialization with their peers. It goes in so many directions why this is really healthy for young women and older women, right? And so that's what I heard when she was sharing that she's playing now.
Lovely. That visibility. right? That gets increased when you do see such high level play and what that could mean for you. Carrie, always a pleasure to speak with you. Enjoy the next game on Monday, and I hope you find a place and a group to watch it with.
Yeah, well, I think Bimini is gonna show it again. It'll be at 3 a.m. Like, honestly, I'm not a morning person, but I think people should come out and cheer for Canada.
Yes, yeah, get up early. It'll be worth it, even if you're not a morning person. Great to speak with you.
Thank you.
That's Carrie Serwetnik, a former member of Canada's women's soccer team, founder of Equal Play FC and Free Kick FC, and also the first woman included in Canada's Soccer Hall of Fame. And yes, that next game is coming up on Monday when Canada plays the home team, Team Australia. 12:31 now, 1:31 in the Mountain Time Zone. And coming up, well, summer is peak wedding season, and we want to hear about your wedding stories and experiences. We want to hear about the good, the bad, the slightly awkward. What are your wedding do's and don'ts? That's coming up after this CBC News update with Zara Premji.
Good afternoon. The number of active wildfires in BC has dipped below 450 as cooler weather and recent rain has reduced the fire risk, although another spell of warm weather could erase those gains. Now, the BC Wildfire Service website shows only small pockets of extreme wildfire risk, mainly in southeastern BC. 3 of the current 23 wildfires of note are in southeastern BC. And members of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union Canada are expected to vote this week on the tentative contract agreement that brought an end to their 13-day strike earlier this month. The union leadership met with workers yesterday to go over the deal and is recommending acceptance. And the Irish Times is reporting that Irish music legend Sinead O'Connor has died. She shot to fame with her song Nothing Compares to You in 1990 and went on to record 10 albums. She was also known for her activism. She famously tore up a picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live to protest the cover-up of sexual abuse cases by the Catholic Church. She was 56. Now the BC weather: for the North Coast, light chance of showers and highs around 17. For the Peace, showers and highs near 18. For the central interior, mainly cloudy and a high of 18. For the Boundary and Kootenay region, sunny and hot, temperatures approaching a balmy 30. And for Metro Vancouver, Victoria and the Fraser Valley, partly cloudy and high sitting around 21. Back to you, Michelle, with BC Today.
Thank you very much, Zara. And now we're going to talk about weddings in just a moment. I remember, I think it was last summer, seeing you in a gorgeous outfit because I think you were heading straight to a wedding after work.
Good memory.
Yeah, well, you looked fantastic, so can't forget that. And did you have fun?
I did, but those Indian outfits are very heavy in this heat, I must say.
Yes,
worth it, though.
It's worth it. I mean, for the pictures, at least, right?
Yeah, Instagram, right? We need it for the reel.
That's right. Nobody can see the sweat.
No.
Thank you very much, Zara.
Thanks, Michelle.
That's Zara Premji in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back. You are with BC Today here. We're on CBC Radio 1, 88.1 FM in Metro Vancouver. And you can catch us as well live streaming. Welcome to you joining us there, cbc.ca/BC. You can see us on CBC Gem and on YouTube. CBC Vancouver is what you would search for. Well, yes, wedding season is here. You may have received an invitation or two this summer, or perhaps you're getting married yourself. Well, weddings are always ripe ground for stories, and we want to hear yours. Yes, the good, the bad, the perhaps slightly awkward. What are your experiences with wedding etiquette? Is it alive and well, or are we a bit rusty? What are your own wedding do's and don'ts? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. On your cell phone, it's star or pound 690. You can send us an email to bctoday@cbc.ca. I have two guests with me for this conversation. Sharon Cara is the principal planner of Parisian Premier events. Charles McPherson is author of The Butler Speaks. Hello to you both. Happy wedding season.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for having us, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Charles, I'll ask you first. What do you think? Is wedding etiquette alive and well, or perhaps after a year or two of not going to events, are we a little rusty?
I love that question, and unfortunately, I think we are a little bit rusty.
Oh,
I think
no.
that the reality is etiquette has been kind of going down a little bit to begin with, And, the millennials are trying to understand, why do we need it, or how does it help them? And then COVID kind of really didn't help at all. So I think people are definitely rusty and not sure about what to do when they're going to actually go to a wedding.
Right. What are the biggest faux pas people make?
I think the number one the two number biggest faux pas, I think, are: number one, not responding in time. You need to respond,
Mm.
soon, because it's not fair to the bride, because she's trying to plan her wedding. So she needs to know. And number two is this misconception that you have to spend a lot of money in the present. And I'm just a really firm believer that you should only spend what you can afford. You shouldn't put yourself in debt for a present.
That's useful information for right now. Absolutely, with the cost of living as it is. And Sharon, what about
Exactly.
for you? What are your thoughts on wedding etiquette and if it's
Yeah,
still, present in our minds?
I would have to agree with Charles on the not responding and RSVPing, in a timely fashion. And the other side of it too, with Indian weddings, is that people are arriving late. So just the not showing up on time, because a lot of the younger couples now are wanting to start and get things going on time. And so people are thinking, no, we can just wait and come whenever they feel like. And so sometimes it just it makes it a little harder with the schedule.
I can imagine that. You talk about sweat. I would be sweating if I if I were the bride in that wedding, and the room looks kind of empty. And so Sharon, you plan a lot of Indian weddings in the South Asian community. What is that like this year?
It's good. Things are getting back to pre-COVID, if you will. But as Charles said, people, like, since COVID has hit, I think we just don't know how to respond, and the dance floor is now finally getting more exciting, and more people are wanting to be on the dance floor more. In the beginning, people were just kind of hesitant. Do we dance for a couple songs and we take a break so that we don't get too infected or around too many people? People just weren't sure, but I think people are now kind of getting back to just kind of getting into the rhythm of things, and so.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been a good season so far. It's been busy, lots of sunshine, which is great for our photos and outside outdoor weddings. But yeah, we're in full swing right now.
Okay. Well, I want to go through some of that. Charles, you have already touched on invitations, the etiquette around that. What about, you talked about gifts. Don't spend too much on the gift. What about registries? If people are registering, what are some things they can keep in mind?
Well, I think registries are a great idea because, it really helps you understand, what are the bride and groom looking for. So I think registries are great, but I think, remember, if you're the bride and groom, when you are, putting things on your registry, you need to be able to put things at different price brackets. And
Ah,
that's only being fair. And so pick things that you want or that you need, but, put things at different price brackets. Maybe someone only has $100 or 75 or $50 to spend. That doesn't mean that they're not a good person. It just means that's what their budget is. So have something there for them at that price. And if Aunt Sally, wants to spend $1,000 on your present, great. She's welcome to do that too. But have a variety of price ranges.
I'm sure that invitation has been sent to Aunt Sally
Exactly.
on time. And what about for you, Sharon? What are the do's and don'ts when it comes to gifts and registries?
Yeah, well, in the South Asian community especially, we do a lot of cash-only gifts.
Mm.
So a lot of times people will just give a cash amount. But sometimes nowadays brides are wanting to have a registry because sometimes they don't have a lot of the things that they want. So I like, how Charles has mentioned the different price brackets, because that is a very important thing, especially with the economy that we're in right now. You can't put the expectation on your guests to be able to spend a certain amount of money. And that doesn't mean that they don't care about you just the same, right? So it is good to have a couple different options. And then if you're doing a cash-only gift, put it in a nice envelope and hand it over to
You
the
know,
family.
yes, I'm a Filipino Canadian, and I feel like I've seen that as well in terms of cash, because it's sort of seen as a way to help people getting married get started in their lives. And so, what about cash? Is there an expected amount, or is that really up to the guest?
That's a great question. I think, there's no expected amount. Again, give what you can, but I think a minimum amount is usually about $50. And if you're really close to the family, or if you're family, then you do $100 or more, whatever you're comfortable giving. But $50 is usually the standard. And then, if you're a coworker and you're not very close, between $20 to $40 seems to be kind of the average there. So, and again,
Could I
give what
add
you
something
can.
to Sharon?
Yeah,
Could
go
I
ahead.
add,
Go
Sharon?
ahead, Charles.
I love the idea of how you said to put it in an envelope and so on, and a nice envelope. Don't forget to put your name. The number of times I've had people say, "Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I forgot to put my name." Well, they know that I gave them a gift,
Yeah.
and so just that
Yes.
reminder.
I can imagine. I got to call them and tell them that was from me. It was $1,000. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and nowadays, actually, if you're doing a card, a cash envelope gift, they actually have cash cards. So you can, they're making cash cards. So then you can actually write a little note, and then yes, a handwritten note's always nice. And then they have your name, and then they know where to send the thank yous after. And thank yous are important. I think Charles would agree with me on that.
Okay, so
100%.
make sure.
100%.
Okay, make sure you send thank you notes after.
And the thank you note in a perfect world, is, it should say something about the gift that the person has given you.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that you might have a lot of notes to write. So, you have a little bit of a script. I get that. But you need to kind of just say, I really love the vase that you gave me. It's going to look really great in our living room. Or thank you very much for the gift. It's going to help us for our honeymoon. Doesn't matter what it is, but just make sure to say something about the gift.
Okay.
There's something about personalized handwritten notes that really do matter, and that it shows value, that you value them, that they came to your wedding, and that you care about them as well.
So much of it is really that, right? The personal relationship you have with your guests. We don't want to forget that and make it all just about the gift. And let me just put out the numbers once again, asking you for your experiences with wedding etiquette. What have been your own experiences going to weddings yourself? What are the wedding do's and don'ts, do you think? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 on your cell phone, star or pound 690. And our email, bctoday@cbc.ca. My guests are Charles McPherson, author of The Butler Speaks, and Sharon Cara, the principal planner of Parisian Premier Events. And I want to ask you, speaking of personalized, we talk a lot on the show about cost, for example, rising costs, and as well about sustainability, and people like to make their own things. What about the idea of making a gift and making it really personal?
I'm not sure. Are you asking me or Sharon?
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, either of you can take it on. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I think that making a personal gift is a very sweet thing. But, also remember the taste. I think that, when you're picking a gift, the most important thing is you're not picking something that you necessarily like, but you're picking something that you hope that the bride and groom will like. So just because you make something, doesn't mean that other people will like that. So all I would say is just caution of whether you're making something or buying something. Try to think of to whom you're giving the gift, that they would like it. That would be my advice.
That's a great point. And Sharon?
Yeah, I agree with Charles, and I'd say, if you're a talented artist, for instance, and doing a portrait of the family, or doing a painting piece that that they've been eyeing, or something that that they'll really treasure and value, absolutely. But yeah, keep in mind what the bride and groom like and what their taste is, rather than what you would like.
Yeah.
I'd like to add on to what you said, Sharon, because I love that if you were an artist and, you painted something of the family, that's great. But when you're the artist, you can't go to the house and say, well, how come you haven't put my painting up?
Correct.
That puts them on a spot, because maybe they like it, but they don't want to hang it in their house. And so you can't say, why haven't you hung my painting?
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Let's take a call now, asking you about your wedding experiences. We are in the middle of wedding season, and perhaps you've been invited, or you yourself are having a wedding. We'd love to hear your experiences. Yeah, the good, perhaps not so good. And what do you want to share about wedding do's and don'ts? Our numbers again are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 on your cell phone, star or pound 690. And Emily is joining us from Richmond. And Emily, you're getting married this summer.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for
Congratulations.
taking my call. Thank
Yes.
you. I just wanted to make a comment. Listening to the conversation, some really good points. Yeah, like I said, I'm getting married in September, and I'm also attending 3 weddings.
Oh, wow.
And coming from the perspective of the people who are organizing a wedding, and all the costs involved, like you guys said, the cost of living has gone up. Even as a guest, I think I'll
Yeah.
be considering for my gift to make sure that I take into account that, maybe the couple have put some investment into the reception. Even a simple reception nowadays is quite expensive. So
Sure.
I just wanted to weigh in on that side that, of course, as a guest, you need to see what your budget is as well. But maybe I have this perspective because I'm organizing a wedding. I know that when I go to attend, I will also be thinking about, the output that the couple had to do in order to, throw the event. Even something simple. You would be really surprised.
I think I can imagine, but can you tell us more about that? What are the costs like for you?
Yeah, everything. The first time I ever got quotes for anything related to a wedding was just recently when I started organizing. And, everything from, the photographers, we got a good deal for $2,000. The venue, the cost of the food, the decorations, the
yeah.
dress. There's so many costs that until I had to organize a wedding, I did not understand,
No.
what goes into it. And we're not doing anything lavish. We're doing it quite, we have a budget, but just wanted to weigh in that, from that perspective, going as a guest to a wedding, I never really considered, all these
Right.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's something to keep in mind as well. And I can't imagine what it's like to plan a wedding with the kinds of costs right now, Emily. And as you say, you're not even having a lavish wedding.
Mm-hmm.
But however, whatever you spend, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful. And thank you
Thank you.
so.
Yeah.
Congratulations! Thanks so much for calling.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Take care. That's Emily joining us from Richmond. Okay, so Charles and Sharon, what do you make of that? That, okay, if you're going as a guest, yes, of course you have to keep your cost in mind. Perhaps think about the cost that the couple has incurred as well. Go ahead, Charles.
So I thank you. I think it's important to think about the cost that the couple has incurred. Absolutely. And, but remember, if the couple chooses to have an elaborate wedding, that's their choice. And so you can't be expected to give, a present that's, $500 because, that's what they're spending on a per head basis, just because that's their choice. Because if you can't afford that, you can't afford it. So I come back to, yes, you need to keep in mind what is your budget. But I thought that the caller made a really good point about still trying to keep in mind that the cost of weddings is really astronomical, and I'm sure Sharon really share that with us.
Yes, Sharon. What are the kinds of costs that people are facing right now?
Yeah, food. Food is expensive. Flowers are expensive. The price of food has just doubled. That's just the reality of what people were paying, a couple of years ago to what people were paying now. I just recently had a client who had secured a hall for 2024 back 2 years ago. And when we were looking at the menus and what they're costing now, the caterer said, well, we actually have to increase the price a little bit just because of inflation and the cost of food that has gone up. So, that's the reality of a lot of couples are dealing with right now.
I bet. And did you say that they booked this a couple of years ago and it's for next year?
It was for this year.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, they booked 2 years. They booked 2 years ago, thinking we'll secure it now so that the price won't go up too much. But unfortunately, inflation. We can't really account for inflation 2 years from now. Correct. So. It is what it is, but yes, she's absolutely right. Emily had a good point, and keep in mind what the couples are forking out. But again, you have to make sure you're doing it within your means, because you can't live outside of your means. That's not sustainable.
No, as special as a wedding is.
I thought was also interesting about the caller, Emily, is that she was going to 3 weddings. So
that's it.
Having to buy 3 presents or contribute financially, that also adds up.
Absolutely. That was the other part of it too, was she's having her own and going to 3 weddings. A busy summer for
Exactly.
Emily. I'm going to ask you, Sharon, in just a moment about tips for cutting your costs when planning a wedding. But I really want to hear from Mary in Kelowna right now. You wanted to comment about the thank you notes, Mary.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I was really glad to hear that being brought up because I've been to a few weddings in the last 8 months, and even not invited to a wedding where I've sent a gift, and I have never received a thank you, not even verbal thank you, and it seems to carry on into baby gifts, et cetera. But we're talking about weddings today. But
Yeah.
I just think that's so important to acknowledge, someone helping you celebrate your wedding day. And I just wanted to make that comment that I'm not receiving thank yous. And, I don't know if it's a generational thing or what. I don't like to think that. But
How does it make you feel, Mary, as someone who's made the effort, and even in a case where you weren't even invited to the wedding, you gave a gift? How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel really like not valued and not appreciated at all. And it's not that you want to have all these thanks showered on you. Just a little acknowledgement would be nice. And to be really honest, it really makes me think about giving a gift the next time, if there's another occasion, it's, and I don't like to be that person either, but at the same time, I think people need to stop and be a little more thoughtful and thankful.
Yeah. It's about being considerate, isn't it? And I'm sorry to hear that that's made you feel not valued, but it's nice to hear that you've gone through those efforts. Thank you very much for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you take care. That's Mary in Kelowna. That kind of gets to what the underlying meaning is of etiquette, right? It is, I guess, about being proper, but it is also about the consideration and how you make people feel. I guess that's the meaning
I
of
love
it.
how you say that, because that's exactly what etiquette is about making other people feel comfortable. And so, in the case of Mary, the bride and groom, they've received a present. They have to think about, Mary has thought about a present, has taken time to go buy the present, has spent money buying the present, has then shipped them the present. And, a thank you note, even though a handwritten note on paper is preferred, it's still an acceptable form of communication to send an email, but you still have to write the note the same way. You can't just say, "Thanks for the gift, Mary!" ! You need to still write it the way you would if you were writing it by hand.
Okay, with like you said earlier, really acknowledging personally, individually, what you received. What did you take from that call, Sharon? And I guess that's really what I took from her call, right? Is that it gets to how people feel as a result of your gesture.
Yeah, I think it might be a generational thing because it's a conversation that I have with my clients all the time, especially the younger ones who are not quite sure what to do in a situation in regards to etiquette. And I always have to tell them, please don't forget to send out those thank you notes. Make a list, especially at the bridal showers. I usually tell the bride and the bridesmaids, I'm like, make sure you have a list and write down the names of people and what they're giving so that the bride knows exactly who to thank. And also a tip, since you'd asked for tips for brides, it's a great way to have a great thing that you can do at your bridal shower is to have a little book for people to write their addresses for where you can send the thank yous after if you're not doing emails. So
okay,
it's a nice way to get everyone's addresses so then you know exactly where to send the thank yous after.
Okay. And speaking of expectations, I just want to say, this could be bride and bride, or groom and groom and bride, and perhaps the groom could be planning as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point that out. All right. So we want to talk about tips in a moment, but just along this vein, I want to touch on, etiquette, but how much then, you talked about it being kind of generational, how much should you adhere to etiquette and tradition? And how much can you say, this is the way we do things now? And I want to break tradition. This is about our day, so I'd like to do it the way I like to do it. Charles?
So etiquette, I think what's really important to remember is that etiquette is something that's evolving. It's not static.
Right.
It's living and breathing. Because if you think about it, if we practiced etiquette the way they did, in the Victorian era, 150 years ago, it would just be totally bizarre. It wouldn't make any sense to society in 2023. So etiquette is always changing. So it's okay to change within the etiquette rules or whatever that scope is, as long as it's logical and that it's always designed in such a way to make someone else feel comfortable, because that's ultimately the purpose of etiquette.
I love that.
I don't have a problem with rules changing, but that there has to be logic to it,
Yeah.
and that is going to try to help someone feel comfortable in whatever that situation is.
That really makes a lot of sense. We're going to hear a little bit more about costs now. Sue is calling us from White Rock. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hi.
I went to a potluck wedding one time that was wonderful. And the people getting married, the chap getting married he left the priesthood, so he had no money. Anyway, so all the parishioners came from every place you could think of, brought every kind of ethnic food that was ever invented. And
what a sense of community.
Oh, it was great. What a good wedding. Everybody had a ball, and nobody had people brought gifts, of course, anyhow. But it was just the greatest. And other people I knew had weddings at the beach, and had a big barbecue, stuff like that,
Yeah.
informal, and just had a great time. And other people, we had friends who you could play music. They weren't professional, but they could play. Oh, well, they said, never mind, we'll come. And they came and played. Different ones played different. Somebody came and played flute Indian, which is really great, people that we knew from Peru. It was just the best party I ever went to. We never forgot it.
Sue, I love the joy in your voice.
It's true. It's true.
That's what you want to leave a wedding with, that feeling and just all the great memories. Thank you so much. I'm glad we had you on the show and end on that note with you. Sue in White Rock. I want to end with Sharon then. There you go, right? Way to cut costs. Have a potluck. Have it at the beach. What do you take from her call? Really, and if you want to cut costs, in the end, it's about your guests having a fun time.
Correct, and that's exactly it. Sue really hit the nail on the head. The point is to have fun, to bring people together, to enjoy your community, and that's exactly what you do. And ways to cut costs is exactly that. If you know people who can play an instrument, pardon me, get them to be involved if they would like to, of course, and have community help out.
I love that. That's the feeling we want to end the show with. That's a feeling you want to leave a wedding with. What a pleasure to have you both today. Thank you so much, and I hope people take note of the tips that you shared.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Charles.
Take care, both of you. Sharon Cara, Principal Planner of Parisian Premier Events. Charles McPherson is author of The Butler Speaks. That's it for our show today. You can listen again on CBC Listen and watch us again on YouTube. I'm Michelle Eliot. Thank you for listening and watching.